Oh, you already have one.
Okay. We're on page 277. Let's see. Samantha. Roger Gold. And okay, 277. And as part of the building of the Mishkan, we also had writing. And that was when the donations were made for the Mishkan. Everyone's donation was used according to their level of how they gave it, where they deserved to be. And also, when it came to the boards of the Mishkan, there were the boards that were a part of Kodesh HaKadosh and Holy of Holies. They were part of Kodesh. The right side, the left side, close to the menorah, close to the Shulchan. And the way they were set up the first time, this was meant to be permanently. So when they disassembled the Mishkan, so how do they know later when they were going to assemble it that it's going to be in the same position as it was originally when it was first erected? So they had letters writing, where they had Aleph Aleph. On one board they had the Aleph. The board next to it was another Aleph. At the end of that side was a Beis, and the Beis is board next to it. So you had two letters that were written that were one next to each other, and that is the Torah prohibition of the writing. Writing two letters is a Torah prohibition. Writing one is still prohibited, but it is not the consequence of doing a full malacha. It's a half a malacha, which is also forbidden. So writing on Shabbos on a permanent surface with a permanent marking is the Torah prohibition. The Toloda, which is a Torah prohibition as well, is drawing a picture having a meaning to it. So when it comes to writing, it would be any two symbols, whether it is a letter or it is a number or some type of marking that has a significance to it. So that itself is also included with the writing. The rabbinical prohibition is writing on something that will, a writing that is not lasting. So writing with your left hand, the back of the hand. So this would be a rabbinical prohibition. On the next page, 278.
Wait, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Did you say that writing with your left hand is only a rabbinical prohibition?
The writing in an unusual way is a rabbinical prohibition. That would, when would we use that? So let's take a situation where someone, God forbid, has to go to the hospital. And to be admitted, they're only going to do so if someone signs. So if someone is expecting to go to the hospital and be there over Shabbos, this would be in case there's a childbirth. So they would make all the arrangements beforehand, fill out all papers, and they would just be coming there on Shabbos, doing it in a permissible way. So that would be the issue. But what happens if there is a situation where they will not? So if one is able to say that they will do the signing after Shabbos, if they were brought in on Shabbos, an emergency, so then that would be the first way to go. If they will not admit, they will not be able to do any help for the person needs, so then they would sign. But signing in the left hand would be the preferable way because that is rabbinic. In this case, since it is for a health-threatening situation, so the Rabbanan would tell you to go ahead. Now, some of the examples, and later we're going to elaborate on it, is the Rabbanan also made a prohibition of anything that's going to lead up to writing is also forbidden on Shabbos. We're just going to go through the list, and then we're going to go into detail. It says in Tanakh, when Jewish people returned to Eretz Yisrael after the 70 years of exile in Babylon, Ezra comes and he sees that Shabbos has been forgotten. People were doing business, people were doing work, and he made a lot of restrictions, many of the very, very strict restrictions of muktzah, what one could handle on Shabbos and how to handle on Shabbos, and all doing any type of transactions in order that the people should understand that Shabbos is different than any other day. There's a Torah prohibition, and the Jewish people responded when they started keeping Shabbos. But it just tells you how it was. So therefore, anything that has to do with writing contracts is forbidden on Shabbos. And therefore, buying and selling, usually that would include a contract, cannot be done on Shabbos. Transferring something from one ownership to another ownership, even if it's not done as buying and selling, but rather in the way of giving gifts, that also would be included. Lending or borrowing, making judgments, what you would, measuring, weighing, these are all part of business. And therefore, all of this cannot be done on Shabbos. Now, as far as giving gifts are concerned, let me, so if it is a place where one could carry, so let's take there's an apartment building that made an Eruv Chatzeros, where there's also restriction if there is a place that is all private property. Let's take an apartment building or a two-family house that belongs to two separate people are living, two separate families are living in this two-family house or an apartment building. And even though it's all one property, so technically you're not carrying from one domain, from private domain to public domain. However, since there is a shared property here, so the Rabbanan made it a restriction, unless you combine all of the properties and make it Erev Chatzeros. Is everyone familiar with that? Living in an apartment building, you want to carry from one neighbor to the other. So before Pesach, everyone sort of technically moves into one house by everyone contributing a matzah. And therefore now, everyone who contributed matzah is now moving into the house of the person who is going to be holding all of the matzahs, and therefore he becomes the person who owns all the properties halachically. And now, since it's now under one ownership, you're allowed to go now from one place to the other. If it's an apartment building with non-Jewish people, then one has to consult with their rabbi how to make a proper Erev Tavshil. Yes, Erev Chatzeros. Yes.
Does everyone have to contribute, or can somebody say have the building in mind?
You can do so as long as they give 18 kazesim, which is the equivalent between, depending on how many matzahs, let's say you can get away with 6 matzahs, others say 3 matzahs, depending on how heavy the matzahs are. So so you could you could do that with one person who's going to do it on behalf of everybody without going to without asking everybody to do so. It's best that they know that there's an Erev Chatzeros, so they will know that they're doing something proper. So so let's say in the place where you could carry and you want to give, you're going to be hosted by somebody, you would like to bring a bottle of wine or buy some challah, bring some challah, some cake. So since it's food articles, you could bring it for them to eat on Shabbos. However, what happens if you have your best friend is having a birthday party and you want to get them a sefer? It's not food. So then how is that done? So you cannot transfer property from one to another unless it's been done before Shabbos. So if you want to give this gift to somebody before Shabbos, and you want to make it a surprise, because if you don't want to make it a surprise, you give it to them on Friday. Now you want to make it a surprise. So what you do is, okay, this is the item. Inside is the present, giving a necklace over here. So what you do is before Shabbos, you go to someone else and keep the surprise. You tell them, I'd like to give this gift to somebody. Would you acquire it for them today? So you could acquire a gift on someone's behalf. So I'm going to give this to Samantha. She's going to pick it up and say, and I'm saying this is, you're picking it up on behalf of Ariella. Picks it up. Now the gift now belongs to her. So she already acquired it on Friday. So when I'm giving it on Shabbos, there is no transfer of property because it is already hers on Friday. So now it's a surprise. She can get it on Shabbos as a surprise, but it's not transferring of property on Shabbos because it was already done on Friday on someone else's behalf. Okay. Now let's go through the different examples that are given here as what is forbidden on Shabbos. Some of it is a Torah prohibition, some of it is rabbinicness.
What if, like, let's say you're eating at someone's house on Shabbos and then it starts to rain and they're like, here, wear my raincoat to go home.
Okay, they're giving to you as a gift.
But it says here also lending and borrowing.
Okay, we'll speak about that.
Okay.
We'll come to that. Okay.
Rabbi Baras, you said something about like apartment buildings and how like everyone lives in their house, but then like, can you not carry something because you're under the same roof? Like,
That's correct. If it is something that there is shared property, which makes it similar to a public domain. In other words, in an apartment building, when you have a lobby, everyone is using the lobby.
Right.
It is like Grand Central.
Right.
So because of that, in your mind, it seems to be public property. And therefore, to avoid that, we have now that there is no public property at all. It all is now the domain of the person who got all of the Erev Chatzeros. So it's his property now. The lobby is his property. The halls between one apartment and the other, the different floors, they're all one unit. It's just like living in a one family house that has many different floors.
then you
So
can carry
you could carry, if you made an Erev Chatzeros.
and then
Does that include non-Jewish homes?
ever.
Excuse me?
That one area is good for Shabbos, like.
As long as the Erev Chatzeros is still intact, which that's why we try to do it with matzah. Matzah usually does not mold. If the matzah becomes moldy for any reason, then you would have to exchange that matzah and make another one. That's why Erev Pesach, they burn the Erev Chatzeros from the past year and then collect for the new year. If there are any non-Jewish people there, there is something that has to be make an exchange of a property. That's something one would have to have a knowledgeable person making that Erev Chatzeros, with including the non-Jewish people there as well.
The matzah won't work for them.
No, so it's a money exchange, a nominal, $1 or whatever, something of that sort would be sufficient. Okay, so now writing. The computers would include that, cameras. So the Torah prohibition would be something that is going to be a lasting impression. So the rabbinic is also, if it's not lasting, if it's something that's temporary, that would be a rabbinic prohibition. So let's look some of the examples on 279. Writing with a beverage, fruit juice. Does anyone have the secret messages that you write with lemon juice? And then you give them the paper, and then after it dries, the paper is empty. And then when you heat it up, secret comes out. So doing that on Shabbos is forbidden, even though it's not lasting and it's not visible, but still that would be rabbinic prohibition. When you're listening to a Dvar Torah and there's the challah crumbs on the table, one could not make shapes while they're listening to the Dvar Torah and sort of playing with the Shabbos crumbs to make letters, why doesn't he continue? it's too short, or whatever else messages sometimes you write to yourself, but on Shabbos that cannot be done. You cannot come and, sometimes there is dust and people who want to remind someone else about the dust, they write, dust me. On Shabbos that cannot be done because that's writing on non-permanent writing, but it cannot be done on Shabbos. Same thing is also with condensation on the windows. So that also is a temporary writing, cannot be done. However, the same thing would be writing in sand, on string. Now, you have where sometimes people, as games that they play, is writing on someone's back with your finger. Anyone know about such games?
Yeah.
Okay. What letter is it? Okay. So doing that, would that be permissible or not?
Yeah.
Yes, because it leaves no impression at all. The same thing is also when you are writing in the air. That is permissible, even though you're making the shapes of letters. That is permissible because there is no effect at all. So it's not that. So this is permissible. The same thing would be writing on the table when a time when you don't want to speak. You're going to wake up the baby, whatever it is. So you're going to make your message by making letters on the table with your finger. The person is able to read what you're writing. That would be permissible because there's no crumbs there, there's no dust there. It's not leaving any impression at all. You're just making the shapes of the letters on the table where there is no result as with your writing.
Okay.
Yes.
What about like on a couch? Sometimes if you put your finger like, and it goes like.
Yeah, so that's just
fine.
making, that's not writing at all. I think it's moving the
But what if you do write?
writing. If it's going to be something that the letters will remain there, that cannot be done on Shabbos. Yes.
And those pillows that have like a little sequence? And you like go one
Okay,
way
so,
and then-
okay, not to write with that, not to write with that. You can push them back and forth, which is.
Right.
Okay,
And fridge
Okay.
magnets.
okay,
letters, you can't put together.
the magnets, so we'll come to that right now. Okay, so now tearing, the shape of a letter is included in writing. Now, we have on page 280, sometimes we have people who, there's writing on the edges of the book. Writing on the edges of a book, usually that would be with library books. They usually put a
In
stamp,
770 they have.
put a stamp, huh?
Some of the Siddurim in
It's-
770 have
somebody
writing
also.
on this part.
Okay, so opening this, and closing this on Shabbos is permissible. It's permissible.
You like this
Because
already?
the letters are already there, you're just bringing them close one to another, so it's not considered writing. In other circles, they will be strict about it. But the Rebbe is not strict about it. Says that one could rely on being permitted to open and close. They recommend not to, if you're going to have svarim that you want to use on Shabbos, not to put your name there, so not to get into this issue at all. You have a pareches, some of the for Sefer Torah, you have a very big Aron Kodesh where you have a pareches that is made in two sections. In 770, that's all one section, but you have those that are made in two, and they would have like a pasuk, Eitz Chaim Hila Machazikim Bar, or something of that sort. Or you're allowed to open and close the pareches. Again, this is something that's controversial, and just that one does not do so. However, in this sefer, they give you they say it is permissible. So over here they take the opinion that it is permissible. The same thing is also if you have a siddur and a Torah, and you want to read, what is there? Are you allowed to put the two ends together? You're not writing it; you're just bringing them close. So they would also permit it. And again, this is something that is controversial. You're taking here the lenient opinion. Now, question was asked about games, letter games, puzzles, number games. So let's take, if it's a game that usually in the weekdays you keep score, even though on Shabbos you're not keeping score, but since this is something that you keep score, then one should avoid playing that game. So how is Scrabble played? I know, I'm asking, is that played with score or not? Do you have everyone have their little pad? And they write down the numbers?
You can add it up mentally then.
I know I'm asking, but how is it? We go according to how it's normally played in the week. If normally everyone has their little pad and they keep score on paper, one should avoid playing that on Shabbos because one might forget and take that little score out. But technically, as far as the Scrabble is concerned, each letter has their own entity, their own little block, and therefore putting one next to the other is fine. Same thing is also with playing blocks for the children. They have the letters there. You could put one block next to the other. However, putting these letters in a frame, one should not do that on Shabbos, and that would include also puzzles. Puzzles, putting into a frame, that sort of unites it all. It makes it into like one entity. They say the same thing is also with the magnets. Now, the magnets are such that if you put it on the refrigerator becomes your board. And putting it on a board that has a frame, so to say, should not be done on Shabbos. So the magnet tiles are fine. Lego would also be fine. We're not leaving it. We're not making an exhibition that's going to be a lasting time. You play with it. You take it apart. The Lincoln Logs. Anyone remember Lincoln Logs? Lincoln Logs. Those games could be played on Shabbos. It's not meant to be permanent, and that's fine. Yes.
Sorry, so you said jigsaw puzzles even without a frame, are those okay?
Those who permit it.
Okay.
Yes.
I was also gonna ask that.
Okay.
It says it's permitted.
Yes, but it's not if it's not in a frame. You have those that come on a board. You put it in. Those would. Now, pinning letters to a garment, that is a form of writing. If you're going to pin the letter, it would be taking a letter and putting it there, even though it's not permanent, but it would be an unpermanent writing. So that could not be done. Stamping would be like writing, making shapes with food. Stamping out, you have those stamps that have these designs, and stamping it on the food, that should not be done on Shabbos. Same thing is also, people are very artistic. They could make from a radish, they make these beautiful flowers. All of this should be done on Friday, not on Shabbos. Same thing also, people make with a watermelon. They make these boats and these very fancy with handles and all of these things. So that's not a Shabbos project. All of this should be done before Shabbos.
Why would you pin letters to clothing? Like what situation would that be?
Oh, you have these nice silver
I see.
silver pins that have letters. So then if you put two letters together, you are attaching to a surface.
If you're like, if you wanna make breakfast for somebody, you wanna make it a smiley face, we're gonna do that.
Smiley face, one should avoid doing that.
Okay.
That's wrong. Okay.
If the kid does it, should you tell them they shouldn't?
If it's a child, then it matters if the parent is obligated to teach their child that they should keep Torah and mitzvahs. Other people are not obligated to do so. So if there's a child who wants to make a smiley face, or a child who, these things, we're not obligated to stop them. The parent is, because the parent's obligation is to train their child. But other than that, children are doing it for their own pleasure. As far as making folds, so if you're making folds to make a special shape, folding napkins in a special shape, so that cannot be done. You have those who are able to make these little birds out of anyone. These you pull out. Okay, so doing that on Shabbos cannot be done. Now, making folds for a certain purpose cannot be done. However, folding a page, some people do that. This would annoy me, but some people who read and they want to know where their place is, so then they fold the edge of the page. People still do that?
Yeah.
Okay, you could do that on Shabbos.
Yeah.
You could do it on Shabbos because you're not interested in the crease. You're not interested in the crease, you're interested in keeping the place. So instead of a bookmark, you've made that, but the crease does not have a special significance to you, other than that if you are making a certain crease, because you want that crease. So let's say we have so you have those who make like a fan, and you want the crease, or else the fan is not going to be there. You make these creases. Okay, made these creases, want them to be there, and then it becomes a fan. So you want the creases. So in that case, that cannot be done on Shabbos. But when you're folding it, you're not interested in the crease. You're interested to keep the place. If you would have had a bookmark, you would have put a bookmark in. You're folding it to find the place where you left off.
You fold the napkin once and.
That's fine. It's not a particular shape. I mean, it's not. If you have a special way of doing it, where it becomes one of these fancy things, so the creases mean something to you. So we don't do that on Shabbos. Now, fingerprints is the same as writing, cannot be done. The stamping, scanning. Now, one who has security camera. So one would have to consult with their halachic authority of how they're to set up their security camera for Shabbos. If it is a situation that is of great danger, they need that security camera. So in that case, there are those that erase after 24 hours. That would be the better way to go, because that would be rabbinic, because it's not lasting. So if one does want to have a security camera, one should consult with their halachic authority, explaining the situation, why they need it on Shabbos, or why they don't need it. So this would be something that's a personal, one-by-one situation. Yes.
I have two questions.
Mhm.
Back to the napkins really quickly.
Mhm.
Can you like take it and open it up and like hold it by the?
Yeah, you could put it, like. That's nice. It's not, you're not doing any, the folding there is not, the creases are not, of any significance.
And also about security cameras,
Mhm.
if you just have it on all the time, like,
You should consult with your halachic.
well, like, what does that have to do with Shabbos if it's just like passively on?
No, yeah, I know, but you're causing people who are going on to be photographed,
Um,
taking pictures on Shabbos. Yes.
Okay, I have some questions. One is, can you make paper airplanes in Shabbos?
Paper airplanes, no, because the folds do mean a special weight, a special significance. You cannot make the airplanes and shoot them. You can make them, if this is the game the kids want to play, they can make it before Shabbos, have their supply of paper airplanes, and then fly their planes on Shabbos, but it would have to be made before Shabbos. Now,
Yeah, also, was wondering, what if you have like a brooch and it's stainless steel? So like somewhere on there are like very tiny letters that say that it's stainless steel, but like they're like so tiny.
so what are you going to do with it? You
Like if you want to like pin it.
Pin it. The letters, they give some message? Is it can you see the?
No, it's like very tiny.
I know, but why is that? Just to stamp it? It's a stamp that tells you what it is?
It just says that it's sterling.
Yeah, so that's fine. That's fine. We're speaking about taking two letters, pinning them together and making, a message. Over here, this is on there to begin with. So you're not doing anything as far as those letters are concerned. Now, walking with shoes that have lines, walking on sand, walking on snow, walking on earth. So we'll come back to you 1 second, okay? So the sneakers that have different symbols on the bottom of the shoe. Can you walk with them on Shabbos? And the authorities allow this because firstly, it's not your intention. It's done, it's not lasting. So this is something that there's a leniency in that. Others are strict about it, but the practice is that one is lenient about not being concerned about the different shapes that are formed when you're walking on a surface. Your question.
So if you live in a apartment building,
Mm-hmm.
for example, these lounges,
Mm-hmm.
so what do you do with security cameras?
Okay, so that is a question that, what do you do with security cameras that you're going to be going in and out and you're going to be photographed? I'd have to get back on that because there are different opinions as to what to tell the class, you know. But they tell you to try to, if you know that it's going to, in other words, you have another thing that there's security lights that go on when you're walking down the street. And as you pass a certain house, the lights open, you go away, lights closed. Are you opening and closing the lights? So this is one of those, you know, one of those areas that if you could cross the street in such a way that you will not have the lights go on, you know, this is the house that it is. On the other side of the house, they don't have this light. You know, these are all like, well, I'd have to get back to what to tell a class. It's a difference when, you know, if you're coming as an individual asking a question or coming as a class, I'd have to come back with that and get an authoritative opinion of how to teach, you know. Like I told you, when I was told about opening boxes on Shabbos, I was told, tell them to open everything before Shabbos and don't teach them anything about opening, how to open on Shabbos. So, because it's too complicated. What I'm going to do is I know we had this last week. I'm going to take it to my halachic authority, and I'm going to bring a closed box, and I'm going to say, here, what do we do on Shabbos? And I'm going to see what, you know, if there's anything that I could share with the class, where it's one of those sticky things that we spoke about. So I'm going to bring this box, you know, believe that I'll try to do so before the end of the school term. I have to buy the box and keep it in the locker, so when it's available when I'm ready to ask the question. Okay. This would be a classical one because it has so many places that, you know, to open. First of all, how are you going to open it? It has so many things that breaking the letters, that would be erasing. That's very, with this thing, it's, okay. Now, opening a combination lock is fine. Now, you have now doing business, and I think this is something that we get to. Okay. No. There aren't. You cannot.
Wait, how come it's okay to do a combination lock if the combination lock has, for instance, numbers on it?
The letters there are ready. You're just lining up letters that are there, so that would be fine. Now, two things. One would be, let's say they have a hotel where you ask for you're going to be charged for the different food items that you're going to be taking out on Shabbos. There are those who make the menu before Shabbos. I'm not familiar with hotel, how it works. I'm just trying to put together some situation. I'm more familiar with canteen in camp. In camps, there is a canteen. Every child has their account. And throughout the week, they take the different food items and they're charged for it. What do they do on Shabbos? And I think this thing would also be in a hotel where people are going to be taking things on Shabbos, which they're going to be charged with after Shabbos. So you could not say, I want to buy. Buying and selling on Shabbos are terms that one does not use. You can say, I'd like to have, could you give me? And in the canteen, they have already, everyone has their account, and they have the list of all the different foods. What they would do is take paper clips and put that on the item that each child took. So in that case, the canteen keeps an account of what was taken. In the same way, the child is able to have the different dash and foods on Shabbos without saying that they're buying it, just saying, I'd like to have, give me, not to use the term, not to use the term of buying and selling. The same would also be with but one does not say, well, the fact that you took this, now you owe me, $10. They could not add up everything, each item without mentioning any prices, and not to add up. Now you're taking this, that will be not do that. Same thing is also in a hotel. You're going to be asking for different items, how it's set up, the hotel, and it's Jewish food, the Jewish, it's kosher food and everything else, how they set it up to Shabbos without having anyone writing the menu of what you've taken would have to be set up for Shabbos. But anyway, they cannot make a total. Okay, now that you've taken these items, your total will be, $150. You cannot make all these totals on Shabbos. So the same would also be now in Hebrew, there is two terms that are used. There's sha'ila and there is halva. In English, we don't have these terms. We do have a loan, and if you make it into a loan, technically in halacha, if you're taking a loan and you're giving something back, a different item back, taking money or taking an item that you're going to give something else and giving it back. So a loan usually is for 30 days. So you have 30 days to return whatever, to pay back your loan. So usually if it's a 30-day deal, the person will write it down not to forget. So that cannot be done using the terms that you make. Taking out a loan, there's no loans on Shabbos. So you could say, could I have, even though your intention is that you're going to, so here we have where you have an Erev Chatzelis, you're allowed to carry from one neighbor to the other, and you're going to ask for your cup of sugar, or your, a bottle of milk or something from your neighbor. So you could ask on Shabbos to say, could I have? And that is fine. As long as you say, could you, start making these cheshbainos without cheshbainos, just asking for it. And then after Shabbos, you'll give it back. There's another situation, and I think maybe we'll have to elaborate more that on next lesson. So maybe we'll just leave that for next lesson, which is what happens. Could you get any earnings on Shabbos for work that you do? How do you work that out? Person wants to babysit. The person is going to be a waiter. What do you do when you want to be paid for it? You're a tutor. Anyone that has any of these? Anyone does this on Shabbos? Babysitting, tutoring, waiting. Okay, but anyway, how do you do it in a way that you're allowed? So you can't take any specific earnings for Shabbos. You can't be paid for Shabbos on its own. How do we do it so that you could do all of these activities and be paid for it, and it will not be something that is forbidden? Yes.
You get paid more for your weekday work.
Okay, that could be done. Also, if any of these activities also will include something that's done in the weekdays, you make it in one lump sum. So if you're going to start your babysitting on Friday or continue until Motzei Shabbos, or if you have to tutor and you're going to be preparing your lesson during the weekdays, so you're also being prepared, you're also being paid for your weekday. So as long as it's done with some weekday activity or some other payment, which also would include, let's say, if you're babysitting and you're going to buy a bottle of milk for the baby, and they're going to pay you back for the bottle of milk. So in that way, they're paying you for something of a weekday activity, the fact that you purchased the bottle of milk. So in that case, when they're paying, the same thing you're going to get, if it's a small baby, you bought Pampers, diapers, whatever it may be, they're paying you for something that you are, for something else that is not Shabbos exclusively. So in that case, it becomes a lump sum that would be permitted. Okay, so I believe we have two more lessons. Okay, we try to. I think it is. We have before Shavuos. Am I correct? Is it two more lessons? The year has really flown by very quickly. So, so what I'd like you to do is read ahead and read as far as you could go. In that case, we'll try to make it more. Take items that I feel are more practical and something that we could move along. Okay, let's see if I took everyone. Sarah Abigail is here. Bina, are you on Esther?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Dina.
Bina's here. Okay, Bina's here. And Ariel is here.
Thank you. Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, yes. And let's see.